So Rabbi Sai, we're going to continue now the shir about mitzvahs Yeshivat Ohr Somayach. I really need at least another 2 or 3 shurim on this. But I'm going to America next week. Now that may sound, I sound like a hypocrite, giving a shir about Yishuv Somayach and telling you I can't give it to go to America. But I'm going because I'm going to do Kibbut of Aim. And actually there's a whole Gemara Kedushin about that. About whether you leave Eretz for Kibbut of Aim. I'm also going for fundraising. So there's a whole thing about that. A lot of leave Eretz for schira, for fundraising, to make some money for the yeshiva. Be it as it may. So I'm not going to be. I'm going to be away for almost 3 weeks, whatever. So we're not going to continue this after I come back. So I'll just have to pick and choose. I'm going to try to get to the punchline, and maybe if I see I have time, I'll go back to other parts. Be it as it may. What did we come out with? Let's recap. The Ramban was quite unequivocal, quite clear that emphatic, there's mitzvahs Eretz Yisroel, Yishuv Eretz Yisroel in our days, in 2022. There's definitely a mitzvah, and he brings it in the Chumash and in the Ramban and the mitzvahs. He says, it's a part of Rash Shaktaba, clear like day, mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisroel. No ambiguity, no ambivalence. He said the black and white. Now, what about the Rambam? The Rambam did not count it as a mitzvah, but the Avnei Nezer says he also holds it a mitzvah. And other Rishonim say it's at least a D'Rabbanan, even according to the Rambam, because we brought many Gemaras, right? We brought a Gemara that the man says to his wife, we'll go to Eretz Yisroel. Wife says, what? Yeah. And the Gemara says, even if they're living in LA in a fancy house, the Gemara says this exact case, not LA obviously, but the Gemara says, even if they're living in a Neve Yafa. What does Neve mean? A nice house. And the man says, we're leaving, we're going to Israel. And she said, so we're going to Tel Aviv or something? No, we're going to live with the Bedouins and we got a tent. He could also force her. Even Neve Yafa and Neve Ra. So even if there's going to be a downgrade in her level of style of living, and the woman too. We said the woman could also force the man. The woman could also force the man. And the Gemara says, also even though there'll be a downgrade in the level of living. So it's hard to believe, and this is in nowadays too. Shulchan Aruch says it's nowadays, and the Rabbi says it's nowadays. Even an Eved can force his Adam. So it's hard to believe that there's not a mitzvah d'oraisa, at least a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's hard to believe that, there's really no mitzvah, but it's a nice thing to live in Israel, so a husband could force his wife, and a wife could force her husband. It's very hard to believe, if there wasn't a real mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisroel, that the woman or man would have such power, wield such power, and force his or her spouse to come to Eretz Yisroel. So we came out. We have to live in Eretz Yisroel, says the Ramban, says the Rambam. So the question was, wait 1 minute. People in Lakewood don't live in Israel. And they're very firm over there, right? The people of Brooklyn don't live in Israel. We can't believe that they're going against a mitzvah essay. Is that a possibility? I got an even better question. If you know the history, the Ramban didn't live in Eretz Yisroel. And until he was an old man, if you know the story, I can't go through it now. Only at the end of his life he moved to Eretz Yisroel. And the Rambam did not live in Eretz Yisroel. He did not live in Eretz Yisroel. He's buried in Eretz Yisroel, but he didn't live here. I don't think he ever lived here, if I'm not mistaken. So, either questions, we can knock people in Lakewood and Brooklyn, but the Ramban, who is the paradigm or the prototype of the prime example, the one who holds mitzvah d'oraisa, didn't live in Eretz Yisroel. Okay, so at the end of the shir, we're going to try to come to answer this up.
Yeah, Rabbi, we mentioned a question last week about that mitzvahs like Kiddush Yisrael, with the Arabs, was docha even a mitzvah d'oraisa of
right,
of Shabbos. How did we answer that for the people who held that maybe it's d'Rabbanan?
Okay, good. Yes. Again, we said it's not really docha 100%. It says we allow you to write on Shabbos. We allow a goy to write on Shabbos. That's not really docha Shabbos. It's docha din amir la'akum. So, but Bishlama, if Yishuv Eretz Yisroel is d'oraisa, and if you want to say it's d'Rabbanan, but to say that it's only a nice thing, It's very difficult to say it's a maila. There's some people say that. There's some people that say, oh, no. There's no mitzvah Eretz Yisrael. My Yishuv Eretz Yisrael now, there's no mitzvah, not the Rabbanan, not the Raisa. And all those Gemaras, yeah, it's a nice thing to live in Israel. So a spouse Kefor said, and it's a nice thing. And therefore, it's a nice thing that the Goyim shouldn't be here. But it's very hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's hard to believe. So just that there's so many Gemaras about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, and it's just a nice thing. It seems like there's a mitzvah, at least the Rabbanan, and probably the Raisa. Avnei Nedu said it's the Raisa, even according to Rambam. Okay, now, the problem is, the Rashbam in Baba Basra does imply a little bit that there is no mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. A little bit. Because he brings the Gemara here, you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. And you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Except if there's a famine, basically, to the extent that if you stay here, you'll die of starvation. Rashbam says, Ein Yoitzin, why not? So he says, because you can't do the mitzvahs of Tluyas Ba'aretz. Because if you leave Eretz Yisrael, you won't be able to do Chumas, and you won't be able to do Maestris. And that's a bad thing, that you're taking yourself out from the mitzvah of all the wonderful mitzvahs that you could keep when you're in Eretz Yisrael. So the question would be, why did Rashbam have to say that? Why did it say, oh, don't leave Eretz Yisrael because you won't be able to do the mitzvahs of Trumas and Maestris and Shemitah, whatever it is. Let him just say, don't leave Eretz Yisrael because it's a mitzvah to be in Eretz Yisrael. Plain and simple.
It's not like you to do those mitzvahs.
On the contrary, right? So you're compounding the question, you're making it worse. So there is a little bit of raya that the Rashbam, there are ways to knock out this raya. I'm just going to use it as a springboard. That the Rashbam would hold, no, there is no mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael per se. But what? You can't leave Eretz Yisrael because, hey, you have such opportunities to do other mitzvahs here, Shumis and Maestris. So therefore, the Gemara says you shouldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. Okay. The problem with this is that, not the problem is, it seems that there's a Gemara that would buttress, that would support this contention, that would support this Rashbam. That really there is no mitzvah per se to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's at best a hechsher mitzvah. It's a way that if you're in Eretz Yisrael, well, now you'll be able to do other mitzvahs. What's that Gemara? The Gemara, famous Gemara, Dor Sheb Simlai. Simlai is in Saita. Says, why did Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisrael? We know Moshe David, Veschanan, 515 tefillas. He wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael so much. The Gemara says, why did Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisrael so much? Is it because he heard that there was Yafra oranges? He heard that the fruit was so delicious in Eretz Yisrael? The Gemara says, El Kacham Moshe, Harber mitzvahs in Stav Yisrael, the aim is Gaim El Eretz Yisrael. Moshe said, no, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. I don't care about because I want to have enjoy the fruit. It's because I want to do the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. And there are many mitzvahs that you can only do in Eretz Yisrael, i.e. Chumis, Maestris, Shemitah. That's the Gemara. And Hashem says, Hashem consoles Moshe, don't worry, I'll consider it like you did it. But all the Achronim ask, wait a minute. We want to know, the Gemara is asking here, why did Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisrael? And the Gemara has to find an answer. Well, because he wanted to do the mitzvahs that are connected to Eretz Yisrael. I mean, he wanted to do Chumas and Maestris. What does he have to say that reason? Just say he wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael because there's a mitzvah called Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Why does the Gemara say, Moshe wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why do Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisrael? Oh, he wanted to do the mitzvahs that are connected to land, which implies Trumas and Maestris, etc., etc. Why didn't the Gemara just give a very simple answer? Of course Moshe wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. There's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. Plain and simple. Oh. So this would imply a little bit like the Rashbam, or like the other Shita, that there is no mitzvah per se to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's a good thing to be there. Why? Because then you could do Trumas and Maestris and you have other opportunities. Right? This is a strong question. Oh.
What did you just say? It was like Shita that you wanted to fulfill that mitzvah, but you wanted to even fulfill the mitzvahs that you couldn't.
Okay, let's see. So the Meshech Chacham already asked this question. I mean, he's quoting, it's not his question, from earlier Achronim who asked this question. The Meshech Chochmah says he doesn't understand the question. Of course Moshe wanted to do Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. But that he was doing already. Because if you remember, where did Moshe die? In Ever Yarden, Jordan. Right? Jordan, who lives in Jordan? Ruvain. Right? Ruvain, Chatzei Menashe, Gad, and Chatzei Menashe. So, pray tell. Ruvain and Menashe and Chatzi and Gad and Chatzei Menashe, they didn't live in Eretz, they didn't have the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Let's say you hold it as the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. If you live in Ever Yarden, which today would be Transjordan, right? Which would be Jordan, you would not get the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Is it possible to say that the 2.5 tribes didn't do the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel?
It's a different status of the land.
But it must be that they did. If there's a mitzvah called Yishuv Eretz Yisroel, it must be that the 2.5 tribes also did it. So it must be that Moshe didn't want to go to Eretz Yisroel. What was the question? Why didn't Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisroel? Because of Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Why did the Gemara have to say here because of Trumas and Ma'aser? Say because of Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. The answer is Moshe already was doing Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. He already had that because just being in that area was called Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. But Trumas and Ma'aser, we know, was the chiyuv of Trumas Ma'aser only happened after they went into Eretz Yisrael and after they had 14 years of the conquering and of the apportioning, right? That's called kibush and chalukah. So basically, Moshe like this. Yishuv Eretz Yisrael I have already now, just being here. Trumas and Ma'aser actually were not given to Klal Yisrael only 14 years after they conquered Eretz Yisrael. That's what Moshe said. Of course I have Yishuv Eretz Yisrael now, but I don't have Trumas and Ma'aser. So that was the Meshech Chochmah's answer. Again, what was the question? Why didn't Moshe want to go in because of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael? What did it say for some side reason? It sounds like there is no mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. The answer is Moshe already had mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Just being in Ever Yarden, that was Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. But Trumas and Ma'aser he wouldn't have until later, because that was only given or ignited only after 14 years. Oh, another answer, which the Chemdes. Another answer is the Kli Chemda answer, the famous the Kli Chemda, the Chemda Yisroel. He answers, well, Moshe did not have to do Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Why not? Why not? Because Moshe was a Levi. And even the Ramban who says there's a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisroel, that wouldn't apply to Leviim, because Leviim never got any a portion in Eretz Yisroel. So the pasuk says Yerashtem Yishaftem, apportion it out and live there. Well, Moshe was a Levi, so he didn't get any portion of Eretz Yisroel, so he did not have Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. So therefore, the Gemara and Sotah has to find a different reason why Moshe wants to go to Eretz Yisroel, because Trumas and Ma'aser he would have. But this is a huge chiddush. According to this, it comes out, a Levi does not have mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. It's a little bit hard to believe. And more than that, it comes out, according to this, women do not have Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Which is even harder to believe, because women don't get a piece of land either in Eretz Yisroel. Only the male who wasn't a Levi got. So it would come out according to this that women wouldn't either have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. And so asked the Beis Yitzchak. And that's what the Beis Yitzchak comes out basically. He says, you know what? L'chayra, women do not have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. If you go with this computation, with this calculus. Oh, but the problem is, the Beis Yitzchak asks, wait a minute, but the Gemara says openly that women could force their husbands to go to Eretz Yisroel. And if it makes sense that this is all predicated on because of the mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisroel, which was not just a nice thing, so how could a woman force a husband because of mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel if she doesn't have that mitzvah? So the simple understanding would be that woman does have Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Okay? But that's where it falls. Some say that a Levi and a woman do not have mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel because they were not allotted the land. And since Moshe was a Levi, so that's why the Gemara doesn't say why did Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisroel because he wanted to mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. No, he wouldn't have mitzvah Yisroel. That's a major chiddush. That's a major chiddush. It's hard to swallow to say a Levi and women do not have mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Now,
she can force him if her husband's mechuyev.
No, mind your own business. Right? The first thing is to tell the woman in the college class, don't tell your husband to go. Learn, leave him alone. That's not your business to start telling him. You're not his mashkiach, you're his wife. The wife can't say, I'm forced. I want to go to Eretz Yisroel because you have a mitzvah. It's got to be because of her mitzvah. Okay? Oh, The truth is, there is a similar sugya in brachas that Rashi says over there, women may not be chayiv in benching. Right? We know that women, it could be that they're not chayiv in benching. And Rashi says, why women are not chayiv in benching? What, they didn't eat? They weren't satiated? So Rashi says, because part of benching is al shenchalta lavasenu eretz chenda toiv chava. Because part of benching is about Eretz Yisroel. And women don't have a portion in Eretz Yisroel. So even though this may sound strange, Rashi already uses this type of svara to explain why women may not have to bench. Now, when I say they don't have to bench, I mean deraisa, right? They may not have to bench because they don't have Eretz Yisroel. And a most salient part of the benching is thanking God about Eretz Yisroel. Oh. But the truth is, first of all, Tais argues on him there. Tais argues on him there. He does not pshat in the Gemara. But more so, it's really different issues. I can even hear that Rashi, we'll say Rashi is correct. Yes, women can't bench because we say al shanchalta eretz chemda toiva, and since a woman can't say that because she doesn't get a portion of the land. But that's a far cry to say. Therefore, they also don't have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. It could be women have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. It's true, they can't bench because part of the benching that we're thanking God that you got a portion of the land. So it's two really different issues. You can't really use Rashi as an inducement to corroborate that, we see women can't bench. By the way, it doesn't say that women can't bench. It says stuff like women can't bench. But it says over there on one side, women can't bench. Why? Because they don't have a chelik in Eretz Yisroel. So we see from there also that they don't have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. That's a little bit of a bigger stretch. Yeah, maybe they can't bench because they can't say shenchalta lavasenu because the women didn't get, but still they would have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Mitzvah Yishuv Yisroel is not based on whether or not you got a lot of the piece of land or not. Be it as it may. So we have two answers. One answer is that we're going to say no. Really, there is a mitzvah d'oraisa. You got to go to Eretz Yisroel. And by the way, the Rashbam, I don't want to get involved. There are different ways to learn that Rashbam in Babasras. It's not a full proof from the Rashbam over there. All right, why didn't Moshe say he wanted to go to Eretz Yisroel? Because of Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Answer one is he already did have Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Answer two is he was a Levi, and a Levi Taka does not have the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisroel. Okay? Good. Now, if you ask me, the whole question does not start. I don't understand the whole question. From the beginning, I don't understand the question. The Gemara just says there, why did Moshe want to go into Eretz Yisroel? Elakacha Moshe harbe mitzvahs nistav Yisroel ve'ein miskayim el Eretz Yisroel. That a lot of mitzvahs the Jews have in Israel. So some reason other than Achronim understood that meant was a lot of mitzvahs. A lot of mitzvahs means trumas, maestras. Because why didn't the Gemara just say that he had a mitzvah of going to Eretz Yisroel? Why talk about harbe mitzvahs davu Yisroel? Famous Gavin El Eretz Yisroel. Let the Gemara say. Moshe wanted to do the mitzvah going into Eretz Yisroel. Okay, I'm just saying this because Yonatan said it, and I also, when I heard it, I'm like, that's what the Gemara means. The Gemara means harbe mitzvah davu Yisroel. It means Yishuv Eretz Yisroel and Trumas and Maises and everything else. The Achronim understood. They had to look. It's like talk about the Achronim had to understand. Like don't talk about harbe mitzvah davu. Just say the main mitzvah. Why did Moshe want to go to Eretz Yisrael? Because he's supposed to go to Eretz Yisrael. Because it's mitzvah to go to Eretz Yisrael. I'm not too sure. It's a subtlety. The question is a subtlety. I'm not too sure if I would have asked this question. I would say that's what the Gemara means. You know why Moshe wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael? Because harbe mitzvah davu. What does that mean? Trumas, Maises, and Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Okay? But I just want to explain to you where the Achronim are coming by. The Achronim are bothered by, just gives a straight up answer. Why do you want to go to Eretz Yisrael? Because mitzvah go to Eretz Yisrael. Finish. So that's what Achronim questions are. It sounds like there's no direct mitzvah go to Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Be it as it may. Rabbi said, at the end of the day, the Ramban clearly says you have to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam is the short Rabbanim, maybe in the Raisa. So what's the bottom line is? What is the bottom line? Why are all of our brethren in Brooklyn and Lakewood not living in Eretz Yisrael? This is the question. So the truth is, Tosfos and Ksubas asked this question. So,
you say Lakewood?
let me see it. According to some Girsa, Some gears, right? And Taisa asks his questions. And Taisa says, no, why is not, he doesn't have, he says, why doesn't this din apply, in our days, that the woman can force the man to go to Israel, Eretz, the man can force the woman? Taisa says, he says, because it's too dangerous to go to Eretz Yisroel. And since it's too dangerous, obviously it's a big mitzvah to go to Eretz Yisroel, but you're not koch nefesh. You don't got to give up your life to go to Eretz Yisroel, right? So that's the first answer. So for some reason or other, Shammai's feeling, okay, maybe when this Taisus was written and the Crusades were going on, and if you walked outside, you basically got killed by either a Christian or someone's going to kill you, So okay, but in 2022, the answer doesn't seem to pan out. And to say that it's safer in America than Israel, I don't know if you guys follow the news, but it ain't very safe. It ain't very safe in America nowadays. So yes, what the Torah says here is true in the 1100s, but it ain't true anymore. It's true in the 1200s, the 1300s when the Ramban lived, but it's not true nowadays. So don't worry, Torah says something else. Don't worry about it. Torah says, Rabbeinu Chaim, the famous Rabbeinu Chaim says, now what? There's another reason why you can't go to Eretz Yisrael nowadays. Why? It's too there's too many mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. There's too many shmita and trumas and meisters, and it's too difficult. It's too difficult to keep all the mitzvahs. That's what Torah says here. So in our days, it's too difficult to go to Eretz Yisrael because it's either too dangerous. Again, it has no application nowadays. And Rabbi Chaim Kohen says it was too difficult to keep the mitzvahs of Tluis Bar. Now, on this, the Maharit says, what does that mean? What exactly does Rabbi Chaim Kohen mean? It was too difficult to do the mitzvah Tluis Bar. It's really not that difficult. You say some hidiwimi, incantation, you take off a little bit, you take off chumas, it's not that, what is so difficult to do mitzvah art? Oh, wait a minute. So the famous Maharit, the Maharit said that this Taisvis is a forgery. Maharit said that this Taisvis never happened, Rabbeinu Chaim HaKohen never said this, and he doesn't just say it, because he quotes many Rishonim who bring this, Rabbeinu Chaim, and there, none of the Rishonim say this contention, it's too difficult to keep the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. It's too difficult. None of the other Rishonim bring this down. And he said he actually got Rabbi Chaim Kohen's book himself, and he never doesn't say it there. He says this is a forgery. So, but now, me personally, I would have said that no, maybe in the year 1100, 1200, when there weren't too many people living in Israel, and no one knew the laws too well, and Shemitah was a big issue. What are you going to do about Shemitah? You're not going to eat for a year? So I could hear in 1200s, 1300s, it was really difficult to go to Eretz Yisrael. And people didn't know the laws. And let's say you learn all the halachas. Okay, you learn all the halachas. You get up there, you don't know something. Who are you going to call? You call your rabbi? On what? What cell phone do you have? They had telephone in those days. What are you going to do? I could hear this. I don't think we have to go as far to the Marit and say that this whole thing is a forgery. But be as it may, certainly in 2022, there's zero difficulty to keep any of the mitzvahs of Eretz Yisrael. Just go to Osherad and everything. We've got all the fruit, right? Capornica of fruit, and we got all we need. We got everything we want. So these two reasons are legitimate, I would say, but the legitimacy stopped basically. The legitimacy has ended in the year 2022. So back to square one. We try to save our brethren in Brooklyn and Lakewood. Why don't they move to Eretz Yisrael? It's a mitzvah, deraisa, according to Rabban, maybe even according to Rambam, it's a mitzvah deraisa. Certainly a mitzvah derabbanan. It's hard to believe it's only a nice thing to do. It just doesn't seem that way. I do know some people say that, but some Achronim say that. But it doesn't seem that way. And most Achronim don't say that. It doesn't seem that way. If you give such an eminence to Yishuv Ohr in the Gemara, it seems it's more than just being a nice thing. So, we're going to turn the page and say, we got the answer. The Gemara in Ksubas, famous Gemara in Ksubas. This is the Gemara. that Satmar and the Munkach, they always quote this Gemara. We're not going to do the Satmar sheet and the Munkach sheet today because we don't have time. I'm not building it at all, but we don't have time to go there. But basically, the famous Gemara that the Gemara says, based on a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, that says, "Hishpati etchem b'nai Shleim," that God made the Jews make an oath. What's the oath? Doesn't say. It says, "Im te'iru ta'iru at ta'ava at shetekbois," which implies that God's saying, when I reveal my love, that's when things will change. So the Gemara says, what's the oath? One of the shuas are, Shelo yalu Yisroel b'chayma. And it says over here, God told the Jews when they went out to Golus, do not enter Eretz Yisrael b'chayma. What does b'chayma mean? Rashi says, Yacha b'yad chazaka. Together with force. Do not force yourself into Eretz Yisrael. Do not conquer Eretz Yisrael until Mashiach comes. Oh, okay. So there you go. We solved our problem. It says here, black and white, green and yellow. There's a shvua that says, open Gemara, Shaloi Yalu Yisrael B'chayma. And Klal Yisrael is not allowed to force their hand. They're not allowed to conquer Eretz Yisrael against the will of the nations. So it would come out, we have even a bigger question. No more question on the brothers in Brooklyn and Lakewood. Question on us. What are we doing here? It's been flipped. Right? We're going against the Shua. Shua Yali Yisrael B'chayma. Oh, okay. Now, first of all, get straight off the bat, this Gemara is not brought down in any codified, our codified laws. Meaning it's not brought down in Shulchan Aruch and in Rambam. That's number one. So you have to know, it's not clear already how to deal with this Gemara. But basically, number two is the Avnei Nezer uses this Gemara to explain everything. He said like this. It says there's a shvua because we're in Golus, and God said, Lo yalu b'chayma. What does that mean, Lo yalu b'chayma? It means we shouldn't marshal an army, right? And go ahead and fight all the Gentiles and come into Eretz Yisrael. Fine. That was a shvua. Fine. Now, would that inhibit, or would that stop one guy or a couple guys to come to move to Eretz Yisrael, have citizens of the foreign state, the citizens of whoever was controlling Eretz Yisrael? Seemingly, Shelo Yalu B'chayma, the shvua would not obviate the mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. The shvua was just one thing only. Don't come as an organized force, like Rashi says, Yachad b'yad chazaka. Don't come as an organized force and conquer Eretz Yisrael. Okay. What's it got to do with me and you going, or just some guy getting on a boat coming to Eretz Yisrael, buying a piece of land here, living here? So seemingly the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael still applies, right? Oh, but wait a minute. But then it says the Avnei Nezer. So who does it apply to? You, me? Oh, everyone. Well, it's everyone. That means everyone's got to go up. If everyone's got to go up, we're back to square one. If everyone's going up, it's going to have to be through a war, right? The whoever was, let's make believe the Turks, whoever was controlling the land, would have like a knock on the door. Oh, 2 million Jews want to move in today. No, that would be a war. So we have a quagmire. We have like a conundrum. On one hand, there's a shua, everyone shouldn't go up, but that doesn't preclude any particular person, because any particular person can go up peacefully. But which person should that be? If it's you, why not me? Why not you? Why not him? And it should be everyone. Well, then back to square one. If it's everyone, that means we're going to be conquering the land. So says the Avnei Nezer, that's what's going on here. It must be originally when Moses came down, when Moshe gave the Halacha, it was a chiyuv on everyone to go up to Eretz Yisrael. It was a chiyuv on every person to go to Eretz Yisrael, right? But because of these shvuas, it was downgraded. it became from a mitzvah chiyuvis to a mitzvah kiyumis, right? What does it mean, mitzvah chiyuvis, mitzvah kiyumis? Mitzvah chiyuvis means a mitzvah you have to do. Tefillin, you wake up tomorrow morning, I don't feel like doing it today. No, you got to do it. What about tzitzis? Tzitzis you don't have to do. You don't have to put on your tzitzis. That is it's a mitzvah deraisa. No one else going to say tzitzis is not a mitzvah deraisa, but it's optional. You don't have to do it, right? Mezuzah. You don't have to have a house and put up a mezuzah. You don't want to have a house. You want to live on the street? Fine, no problem. No mezuzah, no problem. You don't have to have a mezuzah. But tefillin, you have to. Unless you don't have your head, you have to put on your tefillin. It makes no difference, right? So that is the famous concept called mitzvah chiyuvis, something you have to do. Mitzvah kiyumis is optional. But says the Avnei, what happened was, where the Ramban is right and the Ramban is right, of course. It was a mitzvah chiyuvis. You had to live in Eretz Yisroel. Everyone had to live there. There was no choice. But in Golis, because of the Shvuah, it can't be a mitzvah chiyuvis on everyone, because if everyone is going to have to go up, then they're going to have to fight the Gentiles. So it must have been, it got downgraded, that anyone who wants has the option to go up. And if you do go up, you get the mitzvah. It's like tzitzis. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, you get a mitzvah deraisa. That's the chiddush of the Avnei. It was a mitzvah chiyuvis, but because of shelo yalu b'chayma, it got downgraded to a mitzvah kiyumis. So there is a mitzvah, there's no question. It's just like putting on tzitzis. There's no question the mitzvah deraisa. It's just that it became optional. And it must be optional because of the equation that we just made. Oh. But things get a little bit complicated because everyone's like, Rabbi Fine, you're like 200 years behind the times, you know? We've been in Israel for 70 years already. Like, what are you talking about? So the truth is, when the Avnei wrote this, he wrote, by the way, right? He lived in the early 1800s. He says, by the way, if all the nations, i.e. the UN, says, he didn't know about the UN because it is then. He says, if all the nations say that Klal Yisrael could go up there to Yisroel, right? Well, that's it. It's chiyuvis. Then he says, by the way, if all the nations say that Klal Yisrael could go up there to Yisroel, maybe that's the beginning of Mashiach. He said he's not sure. He says, because things were going, he was in the 1800s, so he saw the way things were moving. So he said, listen, this whole entire cheshbon calculation is if we can't go to Eretz Yisrael. So you can't go to Eretz Yisrael, some individuals could go, but you can't come up with 1 million people and start attacking everyone. But he says, openly to Avnei, if the nations would give permission, he says, maybe that's Ad Yom Pakti Oisam, that's Mashiach. If the nations give permission. And then he says, I'm not sure about that, but at least l'chayra, the shvuah doesn't exist anymore, because if all the nations give permission, so you're not going up b'chayma, right? No. Now here, right. So basically, we are back to square one. In 2022, what now? We're not going to go through a whole entire, we could discuss what exactly happened in 1948. If the UN declared that the Jews could come back, and the Arabs fought against us, is that called we went up with fourth or not against fourth? Meaning most of the world did support us. So we could have an academic debate fighting against the Arabs. Was that called we went up b'chayma? But the UN said we could go in, so maybe that's not called b'chayma, it's not called by force. But we did have to fight. I would say it's called not by force. If the whole world in the UN said we could go up, and a bunch of Arabs said no, that would be my vote. That it's not called b'chayma. But I could hear that is called b'chayma, because bottom line is we did, as we know, there was the War of Independence. But that's all moot. You know what moot means? It don't make no difference anymore. In 2022, especially after the Abraham Accords, right? The whole world basically got a bunch of Palestinians, a bunch of backward Palestinians that don't know to get rid of their stupid leaders. Most of the world, 99.99%, even the Arabs already, are supporting Israel and saying, yes, we could have a right to exist. So in 2022, the Avnei Nezer's cheshbon, that it was once a chiyuv, but now it is a kiyum, and therefore it's optional it still doesn't really work out. So we're back to square one. We are back to square one. Why do people in Brooklyn and Lakewood aren't they moving here? Oh. So, and by the way, if we're going to compare, even if Avnei Nezer is right, which I could hear very well that he was right. He doesn't need my approbation, but I could hear he's right in the year 1850. But even by tzitzis, what does the Gemara say about tzitzis? You have to wear tzitzis? No, you don't have to wear tzitzis. But the Gemara says, in a time of rischa, in a time when God is angry, and you don't have tzitzis on, it could be you'll get punished for it. The Gemara says in the Menachos that you don't have to wear tzitzis, but it's very advisable that you do. Because the Gemara says in a time of rischa, when God's upset, there'll be repercussions because you decided not to volunteer to do what the mitzvah kiyum is. So even according to the Avnei Nezer, it's only a mitzvah kiyumis, still it would make sense that you should get yourself over to Eretz Yisrael. That's what it would seem. Okay. So be the debate. Anyway, we said in the year 2022, the whole computation of the Avnei Nezer seemingly does not apply. Seemingly. Because the Shua does not exist. So the truth says that Moshe Feinstein, Shmuel Salant, and the Tzitz Eliezer, they're all asking, it's not my question, everyone's asking this question. Why are Brooklyn Jews and Lakewood? They want to say a massive chiddush. They all say it a little differently, I'm not saying exactly. They want to say, like the Avnei Nezer, but they hold even the Araisa, even the Ramban, that so emphatically says, it's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael, it's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. Even the Ramban meant it was only a mitzvah kiyumis. Even the Ramban meant it was an optional mitzvah. Again, like tzitzis. And I say, why? What would be the understanding? What would be the understanding of that? I think there is some cogency to this, in the sense, clearly the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz was the whole nation should be there. So yes, it's an obligation on the whole nation as a whole, has an entity. But for each individual, you could hear, to give like such a law, you got to live in Eretz Yisrael. There's so many different distinct variables that go on in people's life. So they would say it's a mitzvah chiyuvis, it is an obligatory mitzvah on the whole nation, but each individual, it's optional. It's kiyumis, right? So that's what they want to say. So they want to say that's what their Moshe and their Shmuel said. That like the Avnei Nezer, but a bigger chiddush. The Avnei Nezer said it was downgraded to a mitzvah kiyumis. They want to say even when Moshe gave the mitzvah, it was always a chiyuvis on the whole tzibur. But for each individual, it was considered a optional, voluntary mitzvah. Now, is this a good teretz? This is not a very good teretz. If you read the Ramban, you would never. It's almost like because you have a question, we have to come up with an answer. No one would actually ever say this. Just reading the material, no one would say that it's like tzitzis. It's optional. But because the question is so strong, we have to come up with some type of answer. It's like, the question is so strong, there must be an answer. The question is, so many Gedolim didn't live in Eretz Yisrael. How could it be? It must be that it was considered a mitzvah kiyumis. Right? Like, what's an example mitzvah kiyumis? Matzah. The first night of Pesach, you have to eat matzah. But the Gemara holds, the additional days, if you eat matzah, you get a mitzvah deraisa, but you don't have to. Right? Okay. Now, but we still have the problem, even if it's a mitzvah kiyumis, we said, if you don't wear tzitzis, even though you don't have to, you get punished, even the ritcha. So I presume the Jews in Brooklyn and Lakewood don't want to get punished when it's being ritcha. But then you can make a very simple calculation. Tzitzis is optional, Eretz Yisrael is optional. But how hard is it to put on? How hard is it to buy a beged of tzitzis? It's not too hard. So there the Gemara says, if you don't wear tzitzis when it's so easy to do it, then, even though it's optional, if you don't do it, be'edim deritcha in the time of Ross, you may get punished. But Yishuv Eretz is a very difficult mitzvah. So if it is optional, then the Jews in Brooklyn and in Brooklyn and in Lakewood say, listen, it's optional. It's not for us, and it's too difficult for us, right? This is one mahalach, and this is basically the standard mahalach to answer up this question, right? I can't go through the different variables, but this is what it is. Somehow or other, we're going to say in our days, the mitzvah is a mitzvah kiyumis, either from when Moshe Rabbeinu's time was mitzvah kiyumis, or because we're in Gullus, it turns into a mitzvah kiyumis. This is the standard answer. Now, there is another answer. There is another answer, which is not too great. No, in our days, mitzvah chiyuvis. You must live in Eretz Yisroel, just like you got to put on tefillin. It's not optional like tzitzit. You must live in Eretz Yisroel. So how does all the Jews in Brooklyn and Lakewood don't live there? Well, we know the Gemara says for a mitzvah essay, how much money you got to spend for a mitzvah essay? We know. I always get like if you know for a lav. Let's say you take the richest man in the world, Rechnitz, a big balstuk, a great guy. Someone says, Rechnitz, you better eat pig or take away all your money. And not only that, Rechnitz, but I support so many institutions, so much Torah is created because of my money. What's the law? You can't eat the pig. You can't eat. Even for a lav, you got to give all your money, and even if it means all these yeshivas are going to close down. That's the law. For a lav, you got to give up all your money, every penny, no matter what the repercussions are. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. But that's the law. By a lav, you give up. You don't got to give your life, but all your money you got to give for a lav. So a guy puts a gun to your head, eat the pig, or I'm going to take away all your money. Every last penny, you got to give up all your money. All your money. Right? What about for essay? For an essay, we know you only give up 20%. So if you don't have the funds, up until 20% of your assets, more than that you don't got to give. So it comes out like this. It comes out for essay, there's a limit how much you have to financially have to give. And many academics say there's also a limit how much pain you have to endure, or how much discomfort you have to absorb, you have to endure. So let's go to our Jew in Lakewood, Brooklyn. It's a mitzvah chiyuv. You got to go to Eretz Yisrael. You must go to Eretz Yisrael. You must go to Eretz Yisrael. Well, I'm living here in America. It's going to be a real hassle. It's a real hassle for me to go to Israel. It could be that since this is very individualistic, it could be since it will be so difficult, they'll lose parnasa, they'll have to find a new job here. It's going to be a big headache. Just like you only have to pay 20% of your money, also you don't have to move to Eretz Yisrael because it'd be too difficult. All right, it's a mitzvah essay, and it's a mitzvah chiyuvis. Yeah, there's a limit. This is a very difficult answer. Why? That's very individualistic. Yeah, okay, a guy is 45 years old and 8 kids. You call him up. Oh, I just heard a shir. You got a mitzvah chiyuvis. You got to get yourself over to Eretz Yisrael. No option. A guy is 45 with 8 kids. That's very difficult. What are you gonna do? New job? It's almost an impossibility. So that's like goes under the rubric. You don't got to pay more than 20%. But a young couple just got married. Well, what's your problem? Go to Eretz Yisrael. What's your issue? Oh, I'm gonna miss my mom. Well, I don't know if missing my mom is considered 20% of your assets. You know, by money it's very quantifiable, 20%. When it comes to emotional or distress or pain or discomfort, it's really very individual. It's hard to judge. So like to say, I want to live in America because I want to live with my siblings, it's not so clear that that's going to be considered enough of a reason if it's a mitzvah chiyuvis. If we go like the first teretz, that it's a mitzvah kiyumis, it's optional, great. If it's optional, it's optional. On the contrary, and if it's optional, it could be it's not like tzitzis, because like we said, tzitzis is so difficult, it's so easy. So God's upset you don't take that, you don't do the optional mitzvah. But if you say it's a mitzvah chiyuvis, it's mama's like putting on tefillin, this is going to be a very difficult, it's going to be very individualistic, and it's going to be a hard sell. It's going to be a hard sell. Oh. Now, Rabbi said, we haven't even started yet. Now, I just want you to I just want you to understand. You have to see the parallel in history. This is almost like deja vu. So we've answered up. We've answered up our friends for Brooklyn and Lakewood. We have two possible answers. I'm not going to do Satan Mahalach. They have a whole different Mahalach. But these are the two main answers given. A, it's a mitzvah kiyumis. B, it's a mitzvah chiyuvis, but it's too hard. Again, the second teretz is not so good. But what we do have to realize is here, there's a certain almost deja vu going on over here. Because if you know the history, we went into the Beit Midrash the first time we went to Eretz Yisroel. We went in Yad Chazaka. We went in with the Iron Hand, Mitzrayim, Moshe and Yeshua. We conquered the land, David. What happened to the second Beit Mikdash? How did we go into the second Beit Mikdash? We didn't have control. We went under the kindness of Kairish and the Yavesh. We basically did not until the Ness of Hanukkah. We didn't have sovereignty. It was under Persian rule, the Persian and Greek. Meaning, so why did we go to Eretz Yisrael? Because they gave us permission. And anyone who's read a little history and read the Gemaras, most of the people did not go up to Eretz Yisrael. And what does the Gemara say about them? That it was sinful. What they did was wrong. So it's almost like deja vu. It's like, okay. Then in the time second base of Midrash, no one wanted to go up. Only like 42,000 went up. Ezra and Nehemiah, and it was considered a terrible aveira that they didn't come up. And it's like almost happening again. But we don't want that to happen again. So you can make a difference. You can say, no, the second base Midrash was a Navi. There's Ezra and Nehemiah. They said openly go up. In our days there is no Navi. But I just want to show you it's a very touchy subject, because ostensibly it looks like we're making this. It looks like the Jews in Brooklyn and Lakewood are making the same mistake again. That's what it looks like. Again, like I said, in those days there was a Navi, and nowadays you don't have a Navi. So I could be totally wrong. I probably am totally wrong. But it just a quick glance, it looks very similar. But Baruch Hashem, now I think most Jews live in there. If I'm not mistaken, it's almost 50%. We're not there yet? We're almost there. Oh. Now, there's one or two more things I want to say here. There's a problem. We've basically exonerated or vindicated the Jews living in Brooklyn and Lakewood. But there's a stickle problem. Those couples, maybe even you guys, that come to Eretz Yisrael and already living here for a couple of years, and then decide to go back, now that's a whole different kettle of fish. That's the whole that already is a bigger problem. Why? Because if you look at all Zachronim, all of them, all of them say the same thing. Since it's only optional, it's like wearing tzitzis. You don't have to wear the tzitzis. They're going with that mahalach. But they all say, but once you're in Eretz Yisrael and to leave, that's like you have the tzitzis on you and you sort of like take off the strings. Because once you're in Eretz Yisrael, so you're here already. So if you look at the Gemaras are replete with you're now leave Eretz Yisrael, you're now leave Eretz Yisrael, you're now leave Eretz Yisrael. That's one of the big proofs. The Gemara never says black and white, you have to go to Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara says very clearly, you can't leave Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, to go to Eretz Yisrael, we had all these rayas that it's a good thing, but it never said openly any in the Gemara you can't live in Chutzlar. There's no Gemara like that. But there is an open Gemara, you can't leave Eretz Yisrael. That's open. That's what I just told you, right? It says, why did they die? Why did Michlan die? What's the name? Right? Machlan and Killian, why they die? Ein yoytz Eretz Yisrael. Oh. So now you have a couple. They came to live in Eretz Yisrael a couple of years, and they're living here. What's their heter to go back? It's a very difficult heter to just leave and pick up Eretz Yisrael, right? It's an expounded problem. The problem is much more exponential for those people. You're gonna have to give some type of teretz. I know the tourism, but they're not. You have to realize it's much worse if you settled here. Now, if you're gonna say it's impossible if you make a parnasa here, Impossible. Like we said, you don't got to give up 20%. You definitely, even 20%, you don't got to give up. Certainly, you don't got to give up your whole livelihood. But is it really impossible? It's so hard to make a parnasa here. If that's the case, that's the case. There's some Atayrim that they never really came to Eretz Yisrael. They came. This din that's also to leave Eretz Yisrael is only like if you have a citizenship of Eretz Yisrael. You're born here. But the people from America come to learn here for 5-6 years. It's like a Disneyland over here. It's not really, they're coming here for a little honeymoon, a little vacation over here. They're not really here in Eretz Yisrael. They're still considered there. It's a very, very weak term. But these are the type of term that we try to use. Right? These are the type of term that we try to use. But they never actually live. They don't really settle here. They only came here unconditionally. So for them, all the isurim of the Gemara about leaving Eretz Yisrael don't apply to them. These are not but these are some of the terms that are trying to be used. So, Rabbi Isai, the bottom line is, if you open up a kuzari, and since we're in Ohr Somayach, I'm sure we all know the kuzari backwards and forwards, right? Before we open up, before we learned Reb Chaim and Brisker, right? And pretty sure we opened up a kuzari, right, to get ourselves from over here, right? So the kuzari goes ahead and talks to the king and says, "Oh, Eretz Yisrael," and you finished? And somewhere in the middle, the king says, "Why are you not living in Eretz Yisrael?" He stops the conversation. Wait a minute, we're in Kuzar, wherever. Why are you guys? Why not? And the chaver says crestfallen, puts his face and says, "You know what? I have no good excuse." This is related in the Kuzari. He says, "I have no good excuse," right? I just want to end off. Mamish was one more thought that I saw from Usher Weiss. I thought it was to the mark. We started off this year. Is Yishuv Eretz Yisrael mitzvah d'oraisa? We came out. It's the mitzvah d'oraisa, and we said, according to Rambam, it's probably also mitzvah d'oraisa, and we said probably it's a mitzvah chiyuvis. You have to do it. Maybe later on it got downgraded to mitzvah kiyumis. Maybe initially it was only a mitzvah kiyumis. But be it as it may, the big question was, why doesn't the Rambam count it as a mitzvah? That's how we started. If you want to say the Rambam holds it's d'oraisa, why do you count it as a mitzvah? The truth is, not all 613, something that's not a part of the 613 does not mean it's not a mitzvah. The Rambam has, this part of Rabbi doesn't say, but if you open up, Rambam has a shleishes ikrim, 13 principles, right? If you go through those 13 principles, it means the fundamentals of faith. If you don't believe in this, you're out of here. You're considered apikoros. You're considered a heretic. If you go through the 13 fundamentals, most of them are not mitzvahs in the Torah. Most of them are not mitzvahs in the Torah. To believe that Mashiach is going to come. There's no real, there's no mitzvah of the 613 to believe that the Mashiach is going to come. To believe in Tchias HaMesim, there's no mitzvah like that in the Torah. You're not going to find anywhere in the 613 mitzvahs to believe in, to believe that Moshe Rabbeinu the paragon Navi and no one's going to be like him. There's no mitzvah like that in the Torah. A lot of the fundamentals are not mitzvahs in the Torah, right? So what do you see from there? You see from there something that could be bit oraisa. Obviously, shoshes or ikrim are oraisa, because if not, you're considered heretic. But it doesn't have to have a number. He gives an example. Chinuch. Do you say chinuch is an important thing? Chinuch, probably an important thing. There's no mitzvah chinuch in the Torah. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah openly chinuch to educate your kids. There's no din like that. Or tefillah. According to Ramban, tefillah is not d'oraisa. What?
That's not.
Talk to me after. No. Right? What about tefillah? According to Ramban, there is no mitzvah tefillah. But you think it's not important to daven? You don't think it's d'oraisa to daven? Right? So his point is Eretz Yisrael. Well, is Eretz Yisrael d'oraisa? We're saying we're all rabbinical. Is Eretz Yisrael a mitzvah or not a mitzvah? Just open up the Chumash. Just open up. What does God say to Abraham? I'm going to give you Eretz Yisrael. What does God say to Yitzchak? We're going to give you Eretz Yisrael. And they want Eretz Yisrael. The whole thing is saturated with Eretz Yisrael. They want Eretz Yisrael. Avram wanted. Yaakov wants it. Yitzchak wants it. They're all talking about it. God's promising them. So you're going to say, oh yeah, there's no mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. It almost sounds nonsensical. It almost sounds like nonsense. You know, it's almost like, it sounds like Eretz Yisrael is such a big thing, it's beyond the mitzvah. It doesn't get a number. You don't need to talk about it. It's like tefillah, you don't got to talk about chinuch, you don't got to talk about it. You don't got to talk about the ikrim. There's things that are actually overarching that don't get a number. So that's what Rabbi Shabbat wants to say. Of course, according to Rambam, it's deraisa. It's super deraisa. It's just that it doesn't get a number. We don't contain it in a number. And he brings like all these proofs. He doesn't bring Shlosh Yetzer Ikrim, that's my proof. But he brings the proof from tefillah and chinuch. So, be to the may, clearly the Ratzon of Hashem is we should try to be in Eretz Yisrael. Again, this is not the Satmar and the Munkat Malach. I do not suggest you open up an office of Nefesh B'Nefesh in Williamsburg. I do not think you'll do very good over there. But I'm just telling you the more mainstream Mahalach. Okay, everybody, we'll stop over here. We have a lot more to say, but I got to go to America.